Hello, everyone. And today, this week, we're very much here to experience our body. At least that's what the instructions for this section of the Discourse on the Four Foundations of Mindfulness, what this section is about. And one of the things we're contending with as we bring mindfulness to the body is a tendency of thinking to take us away from the body. And I've found it helpful sometimes to think about thinking, to consider thinking my thoughts to be a little bit like thought bubbles in a cartoon, in the comics, it was floating above the head. And the reason I find that sometimes useful is sometimes it's very clear that when I notice that I'm thinking or have been involved in thinking, that I'm not really connected to my body very much. There's not any sense of embodied presence, embodied attention. And that when I then settle into my body, it's a richer, certainly more embodied experience of myself. But also it becomes more three-dimensional. Whereas thinking by itself is one-dimensional or two-dimensional. It's kind of flat, even though what we think about might be exciting and emotionally evocative and all kinds of things. There's some way in which the embodied life feels richer, more valuable. And so this first foundation of mindfulness is has to do with becoming embodied. So when we're sitting today, you might study a little bit the difference for you between being preoccupied in thoughts. When you notice you are that way, notice what its quality of the mind, the body, the quality of your experiences when you are so involved in your thinking that you're not connected to your body. But then when you switch modes and come into your body through the breathing and settling, what's that like? How's that different? The image I like to use for myself in those kind of times when I get preoccupied in thoughts is that now I'm going to dip back into my body like I would dip myself into a refreshing pool of water, or a warm pool of water if it's a cold winter weather right now. So dipping myself into a wonderful pool of water, and as I'm just kind of like settling myself into the water of the body, that image of settling in and to water is very nice for me and helps me kind of settle into my body a little bit more. So taking a meditation posture and taking a little bit of time with the posture, knowing that mindfulness of posture is one of the practices of mindfulness. Mindfulness begins as we attend to our posture, perhaps making many small adjustments just to get aligned and get everything just right. Closing the eyes. And noticing the degree to which you're involved in thinking. Is there a lot of energy in your thinking right now? And if there is, feel that energy. Feel the activation that's connected to thinking. Feel that activation physically. What does it feel like in your body? Is there tension or pressure? Is there agitation, physical agitation in some part of your body that's connected to thinking? And then as you breathe, maybe breathing a little bit more deeply than usual, breathe into the place that's activated. Breathe into the place where thinking predominates. And as you exhale, relax the thinking mind. As you exhale, calm the mind. Maybe slowing your thinking down a little bit, or lowering the volume. If you think more in images, maybe you can imagine the images are further away from you, projected into space at a distance, so you're not so involved. And then taking a few longer, deeper breaths. On the exhale, settle into your body as you exhale. Exhale and relax into the body. Breathing in and breathing out. Establishing yourself in the physical sensations of breathing. And maybe the ways in which the sensations come and go with the rhythm of breathing in and out. And then coming to the end of this sitting, dedicating this meditation, the effort you made, and dedicating the practice for every breath that you were present for, dedicating it for the welfare and happiness of others and yourself. Dedicating it for the well-being of this world, including yourself. May all beings be happy, including yourself. May all beings be safe, including yourself. May all beings be peaceful, including you. May all beings be free. May you be free. Each of us is as important as every other person in this world. When we dedicate the merit, the benefits of practice, may it be all-inclusive for self and others for this whole world. May this whole world be happy. Thank you. So we're spending time these days with mindfulness of activities. So that overlaps quite a bit with what's called mindfulness in daily life. And the list of things to be mindful of in the text we're going through is quite extensive. And when I was in Japan, practicing there, in Zen monastery, they had a practice called gathas. They would recite gathas, 4-line verses that they would, and we were given all these verses, like a little book of verses to memorize. And before we were going to eat, before we were going to shower, wash our hands, go to the bathroom, all these kind of put on the clothes. There were all these ordinary activities we did. And the idea was to recite these 4 verses that you memorized that were specific for each one. And it was an aspiration verse, may I, as I do this activity, may I. And it was always, as far as I remember, all of them had to do with dedicating it for the welfare of everyone, benefiting everyone from this. When I was here in California at the Tassajara Zen Monastery, they used a little bit of that. And mostly it was when we go to the baths. They had these natural hot springs that piped water into the baths, and so it was kind of a lovely place to go and shower and then bathe in. And but there was an altar as you entered, and you would bow to the altar and you'd recite the 4-line verse that was um, written on above the altar. And and it was, I don't remember it exactly how it went, but it went something like, um, as I enter the bath with all beings, something like cleaning myself inside and out, uh, or something. Yeah, I remember it now. I don't remember, but it was a little bit. And but you would recite this, and so we have one at IRC, our retreat center, that was written a few years ago, uh, and I'll read it to you because that I have here. It had to do with hand washing, because it's so important when 40 people are living together and touching the same utensils, serving food and all that. Everyone washes their hands before we use the buffet table and serve ourselves. But to really emphasize the value of it, we have this little verse that's posted on the cleaning my hands, I clean my heart and mind. Cleaning my heart and mind, I clean the world for others. And if you memorize these kinds of verses, then when you do something, it takes a certain amount of attention and time to do it. You're preparing yourself for it. You're funneling your attention, your energy, and your time to do the activity you're doing. So you don't do things in a hurry when you recite a 4-line verse before you do it. And so by doing this in the Zen monastery, it was a training in learning how to take your time, slow down, don't be in a hurry, just do the thing you're doing when you're doing it. Kind of the idea of when you're doing something, just do it. When walking, just walk. When eating, just walk. And I thought I would read one that. Do I have it here? No, I don't have it here. Maybe tomorrow. By Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh is a whole little book with these kinds of gathas, 4-line verses. And what I'm trying to convey here is when you're practicing mindfulness and activities, don't do things in a hurry. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to slow down, but you can do things fast sometimes without hurrying. Hurrying is being ahead of yourself, is propelling yourself through something or to the other side of it as quickly as you can. Whereas mindfulness is meant to be being there for the activity. If it needs to be done quickly, then be fully there as it's surrender to the activity. I was a fast order cook for a while after being in the monastery. And what I learned in the monastery about how to surrendering to each activity and be really present for it, I learned to do in the kind of a fast order cook. I would just, that's all I did was the dance of spinning and turning and cooking many dishes at once. And that's the only thing I did was all that. I kind of surrendered to that dance. And I would usually leave my job feeling more concentrated than when I entered because of how I gave myself over to it. So giving yourself over to the activity without a hurry, and to live a mindful life, to live a life where there's some momentum, where for mindfulness to grow and enhance our life, grow in our life, it really is valuable to start bringing a good quality attention to what we're doing when we're doing it in the present moment. So I'll go through this list with again. When acts in full awareness when going forward and returning. So if you have to go someplace, you have to go to the bathroom and come back. If you have to go to the kitchen to get something, come back. If you have to go to the bookcase to get something and come back, that's a time where, if you want, can be your meditation time. That's a time for cultivating your capacity for awareness. It's not just to be aware of what you're doing. which is valuable. But it's also what we're trying to do here with this Satipatthana, this 4 foundations for mindfulness, is to do these activities so that awareness becomes stronger. Present moment awareness becomes more second nature than it is something you have to remind yourself to do. So there's both for the purpose of being present and for the purpose of enhancing and developing awareness. It's like a muscle awareness, and you can develop it. One acts in full awareness when flexing and extending one's limbs. And so if you're going to reach for something, in Thailand, I don't know if it's still there, but there was a school of Vipassana, school of insight meditation, that relied on not the breathing, but rather, in breathing you're watching maybe the movements of the belly as it comes and goes. In this school, you watched your arm as you moved it. You would lift your arm, put it down to the side, lift the arm up, put it down to the side, and you'd be very focused and concentrated on the sensations of that movement. And the mind would get concentrated, a lot of calm would develop, and for some people, the movement of the arm was easier to track than the breathing. And eventually, the people who did it a lot became concentrated there, and with the concentration, they would develop the further steps of the vipassana. So, bending and extending one's limbs, wearing one's robes and carrying one's bowl, so wearing one's clothes, so putting on one's clothes, wearing them. For the monastics, being mindful of your robes is important, because one of the minor rules you can violate is, monks wear kind of a skirt and then an outer robe over the skirt, and the big outer robe extends down to the edges of the skirt, and the robe the bottom of the skirt, the hem, has to be lined up parallel to the bottom of your skirt, and if you don't do that, then it's a little violation. And so so you have to be these robes that monks wear, take a certain amount of mindfulness to keep them just right. So you have to be attentive to your clothes. And when I was a monastic, I was surprised by this, but I came to like this a lot, quite a bit, because it was a call to constantly be mindful, constantly be attentive here. And rather than seeing it as a nuisance, I saw it as a kind of way of staying relaxed, not rushing ahead and not getting complicated, just staying present. One acts in full awareness when eating, drinking, consuming food, and tasting. The word for tasting apparently is not exactly tasting, but more like savoring. So certainly you don't want to be attached to it, but to be really present, to feel and sense the taste. And there's a part of lore of Buddhism, or part of the records from the ancient commentaries, is that a lot of practitioners became enlightened while they were eating. So something about that detailed attention. And the first kind of real opening kind of experience I had in Buddhist practice occurred while I was sipping a cup of tea. So the idea that these simple things can be really powerful if we're really present for them and really give ourselves over to it, to sense it and be with it. Full awareness when defecating and urinating. Sometimes it's said to be a kind of, a really good poop is kind of like a minor nibbana, minor awakening. So really be present for these bodily functions that we do every day. And when walking, standing, sitting, falling asleep, waking up, talking, and keeping silent. I find it very nice when I go to bed at night to be present for the experience of being there and relaxing my body, being mindful and checking in and letting go of any stresses that's easy enough to let go of, and just be there present. And my teachers in Burma, they wanted us to be aware right up to the moment of sleep and actually be able to know if we fell asleep on the in-breath and the out-breath. I tried that for a long time, and it's something I've never been able to do, so I've given up on that. And then to be present when we wake up and to know if you woke up on the in-breath and the out-breath. Also something I've never been able to do. And but then to wake up and then begin the mindfulness as soon as we remember. So what I've tried to convey today is how valuable it is to practice in activities. It's both valuable because it gives a heightened attention to what we're doing, which is nice, but also it's a way of strengthening, developing our capacity for mindfulness, capacity for awareness. And that these activities that we do, that's listed in this text, each of them is quite valuable and has a lot of potential, even potential for realization, for waking up, drinking, eating our food, drinking tea, going to the bathroom. All these things, you want to be present for them, because who knows, maybe today, some activity you're doing today is the activity that's going to be really dharmically significant for you, for your practice, really significant, and you don't want to miss it. You don't want to just have glossed over it. And but we don't know which one it is. So maybe be careful today with all your activities, and who knows which one will bear some wonderful fruit. So there's a datta from Thich Nhat Hanh. Before starting the car, I know where I'm going. The car and I are one. If the car goes fast, I go fast. Thank you, Barbara. So there's lots of these wonderful verses, and you can write your own 4-line verse as a way of supporting you to enhance your engagement with whatever you're doing. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, or being here with you tomorrow.